Hey guys, Irene here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite Photoshop hacks and tricks. These are my top ones. I use them all the time on all of my pictures. So let's just get started with the first one, and it is my stretching technique. If you followed my YouTube channel for a while, you probably already know this one, but it's just so good that I have to share it again, and it obviously is number one in my top hacks. So it is great to change the aspect ratio of your image without cropping it. It's great to fade your images for Instagram, and I use it a lot to make my images more symmetrical, just like in this case right here. So I'm gonna take the crop tool and I'm gonna move it just a little bit, and now as you can see, the model is right in the middle of the image. It makes the image a lot more pleasing to the eye. So I'm gonna crop this image like that. Now to stretch this corner right here, all I'm gonna do is take this marquee tool right here. I'm gonna select the background. I'm making sure I'm not selecting the model's arms or her face because we do not want to stretch that. That would look really odd, but we can definitely select the background. Now I'm gonna right click on our selection, choose free transform, right click again, choose distort. Now this is very important. Do not drag the selection itself. Only drag it by this tiny little square right here. Okay, do you see? I'm just taking the selection and moving it to the side. And then I can apply the transformation and deselect it. And here we go. We stretch the image. So this is before and after. This works great if you're shooting pretty high apertures like 1.2, 1.4, 1.8 and so on. This might also work with low apertures, but it works the best with high apertures. Now another little tip here, do not drag the selection itself because you're gonna cause this right here. You do not want to move the selection, you want to stretch it. Hack number 2, we're going to be using the stretching technique again, but in a little bit of a different way. Whenever you're shooting full body shots with portrait lenses, something like 85mm, 100mm, 135mm lens, it tends to make your model look a little bit stubbier and shorter, especially if you're shooting from above, which I do a lot. So I use this technique to make the models look a little bit more proportionate again and kind of correct the lens distortion. So what I'm gonna do here is, again, I'm gonna take my crop tool and stretch the image lengthwise just a little bit more. Now I'm gonna take the marquee tool and I'm gonna take the selection that's, I would say, in the middle of the model's thigh, so a little bit higher than her knee, but not too high. Yeah, something around this. Now again, I'm just gonna right click, free transform, right click, distort, and this time I'm just gonna move it down this way. So this is it. This is all I did, and as you can see, the model looks a lot more tall, elongated, and just a lot more proportionate in general. This is a super easy way to correct the lens distortion. Hack number 3 is about the hair. I'm gonna go into filter and liquify. I'm gonna make my brush just a little bit bigger, and I'm gonna go ahead and make the model's hair more voluminous. This is something that a lot of photographers don't do, forget to do, or just like neglect. And trust me, this makes the biggest difference ever. Making the hair just a little bit more voluminous, a little bit more big, and maybe even adding a little bit of curl into the hair. You see how I'm pulling where the curl naturally is, and I'm just kind of exaggerating that curl? It makes the image so much more magical and perfect. I also follow the rule of rounding up things. So whenever you see a flat line, make it more round on the hair. And again, that will make it seem a lot more luscious and voluminous. Now be careful here, only small tiny adjustments. If you go too much, it's gonna look very unnatural, so you just have to do little tiny strokes, little by little. Okay, let's see the before and after. So here's the before and after on the hair. As you can see, it makes such a huge difference. Again, the rule that I follow, straight lines become rounded. That's all you have to do when it comes to hair. Continuing with the Liquify, here's hack number 4. And by the way, all of the images that I'm showing are unedited and raw. I'm gonna go into filter and Liquify. Again, this is something that happens for me a lot because I shoot from the angle that's above the model. Sometimes their neck might look a little bit shorter than I want. So a very easy trick to fix that is to take your Liquify. My brush is usually almost the size of the model's face, and I just go ahead and lightly move her shoulders down. Just a little bit right by her neck, right like this. Now, you want to be very, very delicate here. Very tiny little motions, okay? And if you're distorted anything else around the model, make sure to fix that as well. So I'm just moving her head over here, just making sure that the braid looks just fine, only focusing it on the shoulders. And this is it. So it seemed like such a tiny little thing, but look how much of a difference it makes. I can't stress enough how this just changes the whole image. Little tiny details always do such a big difference. Hack number 5 is about skin retouch. I use this trick whenever I need to edit quickly or if I have a lot of shadows on the face. This happens a lot when you shoot backlit, and they are a lot harder to remove than blemishes. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate my layer. I always do this whenever I'm editing skin, but really you should do this whenever you edit anything, just to make sure that you always have the original in case you messed up. So I'm gonna get a little bit closer here, and we're gonna be using this tool right here, the sampling tool. Now, the whole trick is that you are sampling the skin color and then you painting it back on with the brush. Here, I'm gonna show you and it's gonna seem a lot easier. So I'm sampling this skin right here on her forehead. I wanna sample the color that's the most prevalent in the area. So as you can see, if we go a little bit to the side, it's a little bit more blue. Here, there's a lot more of that shadow that I don't really want. So I'm sampling this area where the skin looks the most smooth. So now I'm gonna take my brush and I'm gonna make it a lot smaller. Now I'm using a tablet, which means that the pressure that I apply to the tablet, that's the kind of pressure I'm gonna get on my image. But if you are using just your regular mouse, I highly recommend switching up your opacity to like 10%. You can play around with that, but I would say around 10 to 15%. You can also play around with your flow as well. I'm gonna keep it at 100 because again, I'm using a tablet. So I'm gonna go ahead and lightly start painting on top of her forehead that color that I just chose. Also, I'm using a soft rounded brush. Always a soft rounded brush with no harsh edges. So I'm just slowly painting on. Very, very lightly. If you feel like you've painted too much, you can always lower the opacity here as well, as you can see. And look at that difference already. Just me lightly painting on top this color. By the way, I really love that it also still leaves some of the detail in the skin, so it looks very natural and it is super, super fast to do. Now I'm gonna choose this color right here because I want to get rid of some of this darkness underneath her eye. Again, I'm gonna take my brush and then lightly paint it on top of that darkness. The biggest challenge here is to know which color to sample. Again, I'm just trying to sample the color where the skin is smooth and flat. Here's another sampler here, and I'm gonna take away this color right here by her mouth. And even a little bit over here. I'm gonna sample up some color here and then apply it to the cheek. The more you do it, the more you're gonna be confident in this. So here on the nose is a little bit harder because you don't want to overdo it. So I'm gonna sample this area right here that's pretty flat, And very, very lightly, I'm gonna brush it on top of her nose. Very, very lightly. And then just this area right here. Alright, so let's look at the before and after. That looks already really great. Now, what I would normally do to finish this off, here's another before and after just quickly. I would go into my patch tool and then get rid of whatever little blemishes I have here. And again, going with that color on top that I just did also helps whenever you're doing skin retouch, like on blemishes, because it makes them a lot softer and a lot easier to take care of. I absolutely love doing this trick. It works so well, and it makes the skin retouch go super fast. This is not ideal for like high-end skin retouch, but this is great for quick fixes. Oh, it just works wonders so quickly. Hack number 6 is using your camera raw on a layer mask. I've been using this a ton lately, and it is such a time saver. I love to edit my model separately from the background, and in camera raw I can do a lot of different things at the same time and then apply them all in just one click. It's very simple. So I'm gonna duplicate the background. I'm gonna go into filter and camera raw filter. Now I'm gonna do things that I would usually, so lighten up the model just a little bit, add some contrast, add some clarity, a little bit of dehaze, playing with white balance just a little bit, shadows, whites. I'm also gonna take the blues out just a little bit so that the white doesn't look as blue. Okay, that looks great, so I'm gonna press OK. Now, I like what it did to the model, but I don't like what it did to the background. It made it a little bit too sharp, a little bit too obvious. I want my model to stand out, and I want the background to kind of fall in the back. I did all of this on a layer copy, so now I'm gonna add the layer mask, just like that. Now all I have to do is invert the layer mask. I can go into image, adjustments, and invert. You can also just click Control-I to do that. And now I can take my brush. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, and again I'm on soft rounded brush. I'm gonna go ahead and paint what I just did only on top of my model. So here's before and after. As you can see, now the model stands out from the background. The image looks a lot more 3D. All of our focus goes straight to the model, and we did that super quick with just some camera raw adjustments. I could do this all separately with like separate exposure layer and then selective color layer and then all of that, but I did it really quickly with just camera raw on a layer mask. We're gonna stay within the camera raw for the hack number 7. I'm gonna duplicate the layer as usual, filter, camera raw. Now this is the teals and oranges hack. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram do it. Brandon Waffle does it a lot. I don't know if he does the exact same thing, but this is a way to achieve that look. So I'm gonna go to the calibration. By the way, you can also do this in Lightroom, doesn't have to be camera raw. We're gonna use the blue primary over here, and we're gonna move it this way right here. Now you can move the greens just a little bit as well. You can really experiment here and see what kind of look you like. You can also then go back to the hue saturation and maybe change your green more to the aquas, and then here on the green scale more to the green. That's the look that I personally really like. And then I'm just gonna press OK. Now if you do not want this to be applied to the model, you can always take the eraser tool and just literally erase off of that. You will be able to do this if you duplicated the layer, just like I did. So I'm just gonna go ahead and now erase that off of the model. Alright, so now that it's erased off of the model, here's the before and after. Super, super easy, and it really dramatically changes the image. Hack number 8 is about sharpening. I use this particular way of sharpening my images all the time. I've tried so many different ones, but I think this is the best one that I've ever tried. So I'm gonna duplicate the layer as usual. I'm gonna go into filter, other, and high pass filter. Now, for the radius here, you can just kind of play around. The bigger the radius, the sharper the image is going to be. So it really depends on how sharp you want it to be. I usually go by the rule of, if I can see the model's features right here, then it's fine. If it starts to look a little bit too crusty, then it's probably too much. I'm going to leave it at around like 6.4 for this image. But again, it's going to be different for every image. Gonna press OK, and now I'm gonna go ahead and put it to soft light. So this is my favorite blending mode for the for this filter, but you can play around with the hard light or with the overlay. So overlay is your middle ground, soft light obviously a lot softer, and then the hard light, you're gonna really sharpen that image up quite a lot. So yeah, this is my favorite way of sharpening the image. If you also would like to apply the sharpening to only a specific area of the image, super easy. All you have to do is apply a layer mask right here, and then again you have to invert it. So image adjustments, invert, or Control I on your keyboard, and then you can pick up your brush, and let's say that I want to only sharpen her eyes. So now I'm gonna paint it only on her eyes, maybe just her lips. So here we go. Now we made it so that only the eyes are super sharp, and this is still on hard light. Again, you can change it to soft light. You can also change the opacity to be a little bit lower if you feel like it's too much sharpening. So yeah, this is my favorite way of sharpening the images. Hack number 9 is about selective color, and I use selective color all the time. It can really change the whole tonality of the image. So here's a finished picture of Peyton. I'm gonna go to adjustment layers, choose selective color, and let's start with the black. Now I can move it to different sides and it's gonna give it a different color. Here's with the blue, here's with the yellow, completely different. Here's with the red. I really like what the red does to the image. It gives it a very vintage look. Again, you can just kind of play around and see what color you like. You can mix the color combination. Here's a little bit of red and purple together. Looks pretty cool in my opinion. Another thing I like to do is play with the whites. So I'm gonna choose the whites and I'm gonna make them brighter. So here on the black scale, I'm gonna bring it this way. So here's the before on Peyton's face. As you can see, it gives it a little bit more life, a little bit of luminosity. I really like what it does. Now, what we can also do is add a little bit of color there because it is very white right now. Again, on the white, maybe I'm gonna move it a little bit here to the yellow side and pinkish side. That looks great. So here's the before and after just on the white selective color. Alright, so my last trick is about using the dodge and burn technique and specifically burning some of the details into the image. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the adjustment layer in curves, and I'm gonna pull it down right here. I'm gonna pull it down quite a bit, something like this. I'm gonna go into image adjustments and invert, or Control I if you like to use the keyboard. Now again, I'm gonna take my brush. I'm gonna zoom in on the picture quite a bit. Again, my brush is a small rounded, soft rounded brush, sorry. And again, in here, if you are using a mouse, I recommend lowering the opacity to maybe like 20%, 15%. Again, you can play around here. Because I'm using a tablet, I don't really need to worry about the opacity. So all I'm going to be doing is with a really tiny brush, mimicking the strokes of her eyebrows and her eyelashes, contouring around the eye and eyelash. Okay, so here it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and lightly put more strokes in the eyelash. Hopefully you guys can see. Maybe I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit more over here. All I'm doing is following some of the eyelashes that she already has, making some of them darker, adding some more in, kind of following her natural shape, but making it a little bit more dramatic, making it stand out a little bit more. Now, you might think that this is excessive, that it's not gonna really do much, but trust me, if you pay attention to these little details, it's gonna be so amazing in the end. Okay, now I do the same thing on the eyelashes. When I'm finishing the stroke, I go really light. If you messed up, you can always just erase your mistakes. All right, here we go. So nice strokes. I'm adding more eyelashes. I'm lengthening her eyelashes. I'm making them darker. This is also great for the lower eyelashes. Sometimes I'll even darken the lash line right over here. All right, and let's do the same on this eye. All right, so I'm done here. So let's back up just a little bit. All right, so here's what we did. Let's see the before and after. Before and after. If you feel like you did a little bit too much, you can always lower the opacity here. And then it's a lot more natural, but still very effective. So this is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know which one was your favorite hack, and if you would like me to make more videos like that, subscribe to my channel and like this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!